It's been over 7 months since I had my twins, and the experience is one that I will live to remember for the rest of my life, quite frankly. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Or if you're stopping by for the first time, hi, you're welcome too. My name is Doshima and I make videos about beauty, lifestyle, and most recently my pregnancy journey from Jos, Nigeria. You're welcome to stick around. Feel free to join the family. Just tap on the subscribe button and don't forget to click on the notification bell just beside it so you're the first to get alerts or notifications once I upload a new video. So this is one story that I love to tell. I definitely feel that there is a lot to learn from it. We learn from other people's experiences. I'm aware that each pregnancy is different, everybody's pregnancy is different, labor experience is different, as we are all different people. But I still think that there is something to learn from one person's experience or from people's experiences. So from the moment I found out I was pregnant, I started watching all these labor and delivery videos on YouTube. But I was watching mostly for I wasn't watching specifically for twins, actually, or for multiples. And even up to when I had my babies, I was still looking for answers on Google, on YouTube, everywhere. So when I had this experience, I thought it was something worth sharing on my channel. And I do pray earnestly that I'm able to tell the story as it is, or at least say the things that are most important or most impactful. Without further ado, let's get down to the story. So like I had shared in a previous video, I found out I was pregnant with twins quite late in my 31st week. So when I found out, everything changed. I was anxious. There was a lot of emotions. I was happy for an answered prayer, but at the same time I was confused and wondering where I was supposed to start from. I, you know, like 1,001 things running through my mind. Everything had changed. From preparing for one baby, it went to preparing for two babies, and there seemed to be such little time left for that. But I had to gather myself. So I had gotten my delivery items already from a nurse in the hospital where I received antenatal care. Why, when I found out I was pregnant with twins, or I was going to have twins, I called her up to ask her advice mostly, and also to get additional things, stuff like olive oil for cleaning the baby up after delivery, cord clamp, and some other things that I would need double of. So I called her up, and when I told her, she was surprised, and then she asked me to go do another ultrasound scan in a radiology center that she trusted, and this was the third one. I went, and the doctor confirmed also that I was having twins. So I brought the results back to her, and she asked that I saw the gynecologist the very next day. So the hospital where I receive antenatal care is quite small. It's more or less a clinic, and they do not have specialists readily available all day, all week. So the gynecologists, people like gynecologists, pediatricians, they only come once in a week. So this happened on a Wednesday, and the gynecologist is usually around on Thursdays. So I got ready to go see him on Thursday morning. When I got to the hospital, the nurse who was on duty, because I was supposed to see the nurse first, and she'll give me my folder to take to the doctor. So when I got to her and she asked what the problem was, I told her that this other nurse had asked me to come see the doctor, see the gynecologist, to which she said that there was no need. She asked if I had had complications in my pregnancy, and I told her that I didn't, or I hadn't. It was just for the simple fact that I had just found out I was pregnant with twins and so late into my pregnancy. So she just asked me to lie down, checked me, the usual palpation, and she used the fetal Doppler to check for my baby's movements and heartbeats, and she said I was fine, that there was no problem. or no need to panic. I should go home. And so I wasn't in any mood to argue or insist, or I was just tired. I didn't have the energy, mental strength for that. So I just left. And I called the other nurse back, and she insisted that I had to see the gynecologist. And she told someone else, some other lady who is also a nurse, although not a nurse in this hospital, at least not at this time, to follow me or take me to see the doctor. And coincidentally, this lady is a member of my church, and her husband is quite acquainted with my husband. So she came and took me, and we went to see the gynecologist after she collected my folder from the nurse. And when we got to his office and we told him, he did a check also, just physical check, asked me to lie down, he checked me, and then he looked at my scans, my ultrasound scan results, and he said that everything was fine. He actually said that both babies were presenting in the cephalic position, which is head down, which is the normal position for baby at the time of delivery, but that anything could happen. It could change or anything. Since this was a twin pregnancy, it was not quite predictable, and that he would advise me to opt for an elective C-section, where I'll just come in and they'll just schedule me for a C-section and cesarean section, and I'll just come in and they'll deliver me of my babies. So I asked to think about it. So I went back home, talked to my husband, and then there is also an auntie of mine whose husband was a doctor. I called him and told him about it as well. Incidentally, he knew this gynecologist guy, so he called him up and talked to him also, and the gynecologist told him the same thing that he told me. And the problem was, or the concern was, that he was no resident around here. Note that where I stay is quite far from town. So his concern was that if I went into labor, and he wasn't able to get to me, in case any complications arose, it was going to be a problem. So that was the more reason that he had asked me to opt for an elective C-section instead. So I thought about it, prayed about it. I'm Catholic, and there's this 9-day prayer called a novena that I usually do every month. So I prayed about it. Another option also was to go check another hospital, to check out another hospital and get a second opinion. So I went to another hospital. I went to Bingham University Teaching Hospital. If you're in Jos or you're familiar with the place, it's called John Kwano. So I went there. After all the inquiry and everything, my spirit just didn't agree. My mind did not agree with it, didn't sit well with me. So I just left, and I decided to just settle for the settle for the C-section in the hospital where I had known, where I had been attending antenatal, where they knew my case and all that. Another thing that I can say helped me or made me arrive at the decision that I did was an experience I had during one of my antenatal visits. A woman lost her twin babies, and the story was that she was asked to come in for a C-section, but she insisted on a vaginal birth. And then one of the babies died before he was born, and the other one died right after birth. And I found that quite traumatic. In fact, that was the period that I found out I was pregnant with twins. So I know that every woman is different, like I said earlier, and my experience might not be your experience, but I cannot lie. I cannot even lie. That definitely inspired my decision. So after praying and everything, going back and forth, by the next week I was ready with my decision, and that was to go for the C-section. So I called, I mean, not call. I went to the hospital and met the gynecologist by the following week, and he scheduled scheduled me for 4th of March for the C-section. He scheduled the C-section for 4th of March. And prior to this time, I had been saying that my babies were going to be born in the first week of March. I'm not saying, I just had a feeling. I just had a gut feeling, and even my sister who was staying with me kept saying it. And so I was preparing my mind towards that, and then the doctor ended up choosing 4th. I expressed concern because I knew that, although I knew that my babies were going to be 37 weeks by that Sunday the 28th of February, and that at 37 weeks they're ready to be born, I just thought that waiting a little longer will not hurt. So I asked the doctor if we could make it a week after, that would be 11th, but he said no, that it was better to do it early so that I didn't go into labor. So I went home, started getting ready for the next week, which will be. So I went home and started getting ready for 4th of March. So I had been carrying my hair, my braids for a while. So I loosened them on Friday after I'd seen the gynecologist, and I was ready to do my hair, do the last minute shopping, and just prepare myself for whatever I needed to do before the babies came. But that weekend, I didn't know it was going to be a long one, going to be different from what I planned or what I thought, what I expected. So on Friday, I was craving pounded yam and egusi, which was actually mostly my cravings for most of my pregnancy. Right from my first trimester, I ate a lot of pounded yam. I don't know, I just really enjoyed it at that time. So I told my sister that I wanted to eat pounded yam and egusi soup, and we were going to make it that evening. But then my mom sent some fabrics, Ankara, we call them wrapper here. She sent them because I was going to need them for delivery. We didn't know that it was not the same as vaginal birth, because of course in a vaginal birth they have to clean you up, put something on that, just so many things to use the wrapper for. But it wasn't like that for the C-section. In fact, I didn't need it for the delivery at all. So it was just for after birth that I needed it for my babies. So my sister went to town to collect them, and she didn't return in time because of traffic and all that. I had to sit down and pound, and I was feeling okay. For me to pound yam, that means that meant that I was fine, right? Or you would think. So by the time she came back, the food was ready. And on Wednesday before this same week, I had gone for antenatal care, and they said that my blood pressure was low, so they gave me B complex and the other routine drugs, folic acid and ferrous sulfate, I think, fersolate. Fast forward to later that night, probably around midnight, when I was ready to sleep, because at this time sleep was a major problem. I could hardly sleep well, so there was no point going to lie down early and tossing and turning through the night. So when I was ready to sleep, I opened the drawer to take the drugs, because the smell was something else. I just couldn't stand them, so I just put them away in the drawer. When I was ready to take them, I opened the drawer and the smell just hit me. Like, if you know B complex, you know the smell. So immediately I took them. It wasn't quite 1 minute after I took them before everything started coming back, along with every other thing I had eaten. So for the rest of that night, I was throwing up. I couldn't sleep. I was so tired. And even the following day, on Saturday, I was mostly just dragging my feet around the house, lying down, watching TV. I couldn't do much. I was just thinking that it was a phase that would pass. At the same time, I had gone on Google and read or asked what this could mean, me vomiting and all of that at this point in my pregnancy. And some results said that it was an early sign of labor, but I didn't want to believe it. I just wanted to consider it one of those times because I threw up all through my pregnancy. If I ate anything or took anything that didn't sit well with me, I'll just throw up. So I just wanted to think that that was it. I didn't want to think much of it. And even my sister had been doing her own research and she was telling me, but I just didn't want to believe it. I had seen signs like mucus plug, all of that. I was living in denial actually, because I didn't want my babies to come before my husband came or before my mom came, because I really wanted to share that moment with him, with my husband. I didn't want to go through all of that alone. So fast forward to Sunday morning came. I got up as usual, went to church, um, came back. The rest of that day is actually just very easy. I can't remember what happened for the rest of that day, but I remember that at night I I had taken my bath, changed my pajamas. I was ready to sleep. I was lying down. I was saying my rosary. I was on the last decade actually, almost done, and then suddenly I felt my water break. Like, if there was any mistaking, it couldn't have been in this case, because I'd read prior that some people would think, because it was some people would mistake it because it was just a trickle, or maybe some people never some people's water never broke, all of that. Mine wasn't like that. It was like someone poured a whole bowl of water on me. So I knew that that had to be it, because I had watched videos and all. And so because of everything I had read, I tried to be very, because I didn't have experience, or I don't have didn't have experience in that sort of thing, or being pregnant. So I just watched a lot of videos, read a lot of stuff online to be sure what I was dealing with. And I had read and watched before then that once your water broke, it was SOS, time to get to the hospital. So I I just immediately jumped off the bed, told my sister, and told her to start packing the things, throwing in the things that I hadn't. I had packed baby stuff, hospital stuff, delivery stuff, but there were a few other things left. So I just told her to start packing while I started calling, or trying to call, someone that would take me to the hospital. And this was around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. So I started trying to call the nurse whom I had been in contact with, who knew about my case. I started calling the other lady who had taken me to the gynecologist, calling everyone. No one was answering. Sunday night, people were resting and getting ready for the week ahead. So everyone was practically asleep and nobody was answering. And I was just panicking. It was at this point that I I went outside and I saw that my neighbor's car was still parked outside. He too, like my husband, does not stay here, but he had come for the weekend, and he would usually leave on Sunday evenings, but he didn't leave on that day. I was to find out later that he only stayed back because of me, because he said when he saw me on or in the morning of that Sunday, I looked quite pale. And I guess that meant that, or he knew that I was going to go into labor anytime soon, or that day. So that was why I stayed back. So I went out and I saw his car parked out. And when he heard my footsteps, he came out, and I told my near to get to the hospital. He got dressed and immediately came out. My sister had finished packing. So we just threw in the things that I needed, and we headed to the hospital. And all this while, I was still leaking. There was still trickle following me. There was no mistaking. This was my water breaking, or busting, or had broken. So we got to the hospital, went straight to the maternity ward, and fortunately, or so I thought, the nurse that we met there was the same one who was there the day I came to um, register my schedule for the C-section. And so I told her my water had broken, and she asked me if I was sure. Of course I was sure. So she asked me to lie down, and she used the fetal Doppler again to check me for my baby's movements and heartbeats. And then they started trying to call the doctor, but everyone was so chill about this whole thing. Like, the nurse was practically taking her time to do everything. She later went and met the doctor on call, who didn't even know about my case. Yes, baby. And the doctor also started trying to call this gynecologist. It was late, and I don't understand for the life of me why labor always comes in the night. Why? I don't understand it though. If there's an answer for that, if you have an answer for it, please let me know in the comment section, because I really cannot understand why it comes very at a time when you are almost likely to be stranded. So eventually the gynecologist answered his phone, but this was not before I had called that my auntie's husband, who is a doctor, and told him. And so he also started trying to call the gynecologist, but he told me, he asked if I had contractions, and I didn't. Guys, I didn't have a single contraction. Like, it was just my water that had broken. So he said there was no need to panic, that I should calm down. If there were no contractions, it was fine. And so the gynecologist called back eventually, like I said, and he said that there was no problem, there was no need to panic, and that he would come early, first in the morning, to do the surgery. Prior to this time, the nurse had asked me to wear a pad. Like, she said it like I was supposed to know. Me, I didn't know. Sorry, baby. I didn't know that when your water breaks like that, like it did in my situation, you're supposed to wear a pad. So I had a pad, so I just put it on, and I was panicking. Nobody, I guess every other person was chill. I don't know, but me, I was panicking. It didn't look like it outside. Definitely didn't. I was watching it, all the YouTube videos I could find, looking for any Nigerian who had a vaginal twin birth in Nigeria. I wanted to know what it meant, what my water breaking at that point meant, if there was any problem, if there wasn't. I just had all those questions, and I ended up sleeping off, waking up, sleeping off, and waking up. That for the whole of that night. So that night is probably going to be one of my longest nights in the history of my life, in my entire life. So I just kept remembering what I had prayed for. So when I was praying, trying to make a decision, I had asked that if it was meant to be a C-section, that my recovery should be swift. And because I just couldn't imagine dealing with recovering and taking care of two babies, recovering from a C-section and taking care of two babies. Mostly because I had heard horrifying stories about C-sections. A friend of mine had just had a C-section, or had had a C-section in the previous year, and she had told me so many horrifying stories about her recovery and all that. So my prayer point was just to have a swift recovery, and and if it was meant to be a vaginal birth, to have a rapid labor. You know, one of those labors where before you can say jack, the baby is out already, or the babies are out. So throughout that night, I kept thinking, what is it going to be? I don't have any contractions yet. Can the baby still come without contractions? No. What's going to happen? Will I eventually end up having the C-section? I just kept thinking and dozing off and waking up, until eventually I was woken up around 5-6 a.m. to go have my bath. So they shaved my pubic area, gave me water to take my bath, gave me a robe to change into a theater robe, and then I walked to the theater. This was around 7 a.m. So I got there. They're trying to cheer me up. My hair was a mess. At this point, I wasn't really thinking. I wasn't really, like, I think my coping mechanism for dealing with such situations is just to live without, like, be present without actually being present. Like, I'm just there like a should I say a dummy, or I don't know, like without feelings, without, because I don't want to think about it. Maybe if I was thinking about the gravity of everything that was happening, I would have been in tears, and I didn't want that. I just wanted to, you know, just do it. So I signed the consent form, and then they started to poke me and prick me here and there. I got to lie on the bed. No, that wasn't really a bed. It wasn't comfortable, and they gave me the famous long needle spinal cord injection. I don't know if the needle was long. I didn't want to look at it. I had watched a CCMA's delivery video where she talked about that long needle and the way she described it. I didn't want to look at it, so it didn't scare me. So, but I know that they poked me, that they put something in my spinal cord. That was probably an anesthetic. And the doctor, theater attendant, I don't know who that was, but there were many people in the theater anyway. Nurses, two doctors, the gynecologist, and one other doctor. So many other people, and he didn't want me to sleep, to doze off, and he kept asking me questions, and just to keep me awake, questions that I can't quite remember right now. They got to work in no time, and I could feel the pressure of what they were doing. Like, I couldn't feel any pain. I couldn't feel the pain, and I couldn't see because there was a barrier. They set up a barrier, like a curtain between us, and I couldn't see what they were doing. But I could definitely feel the pressure. Like, I don't know if you understand this. I don't know how to explain it, but the skin is elastic, right? So if it is torn open, they have to hold it open, I guess, like pull it open, so they can get into it to get the babies out. So I guess that was it. That was what I was feeling. I could feel the pressure of them tugging at my skin. I couldn't quite feel the pain. I couldn't feel my legs. I was numb, and I hated that feeling. Like, when will all this be over? I just wanted it to be over. And in no time, it didn't take long, the babies were out. One baby came out, she was crying. This was the first baby. And then this one came, and the nurse brought them to me to kiss them. That was just in a space of 1 minute. One was born at 7:35 or 7:36 a.m. Second was at 7:37 a.m. or just a minute difference anyway. They didn't give them to me to carry or anything like that. No, like skin to skin, put into breast. And even though I had read and heard that should be done, I couldn't say anything at that point. So I just kissed them, and they took them away to clean them up. So they got to stitching me up almost immediately, and in no time they were done. They wheeled me out of the theater. There were so many people around me. I was just there. I was just like looking up. I didn't even want to look at anybody. I didn't even know or care the state of my body, whether I was clothed, whether I was covered, properly covered or not. I just didn't know. At that point, I was oblivious because I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't feel. I wasn't myself. Chat. So we got to the maternity ward, and I tried to raise my head up. I knew I couldn't have gotten up myself, but I don't know why I wanted to raise my head. And the nurse shouted, "Would you put your head back down? Don't try to do that." And they carried me. I think they carried me along with the sheets, and because they couldn't touch my body, so they carried me and they placed me on the bed along with they put an underlie pad for blood, and they placed me on the bed. And for the rest of that day, I was just in bed. I couldn't do much. Quite frankly, I couldn't move much. I think later in the day I was able to sit up in bed with some help. It's a lot of help actually, but I couldn't get down or move anywhere. I couldn't eat anything, drink anything. I was thirsty at some points, but they kept me hydrated with drip that they kept refilling or changing. So for the whole of that day, anyway, I didn't eat anything, and I was just there in bed, and I was miserable, quite frankly. I couldn't even bask in the moment, not to talk of taking pictures with my baby. There was none of that. So the following day, the nurse gave me my medicine. They were giving me a lot of medicines, routine drugs. After every 6 hours, after every 12 hours, they're giving me a lot of medicine. And I asked to go to the bathroom because I'd heard or read that much that by the following day you should be able to go to the bathroom or walk or try to, at least. It will help your bowels, to help recovery. So I just knew that okay, I had to do this. So I asked her to go to the bathroom and clean myself up, and she accepted. And then I just managed, dragged my feet, just managed to clean because there was a lot of blood down there. I just managed to clean myself up. The doctor came and checked me, and then he said I could take pap, I could take tea, Lipton without milk. I could take Lipton with glucose, and or any black tea actually, not just Lipton. And I should just start off on solids. So for the first two days, I was just taking that pap and black tea and drinking lots of water. And then after that day, I was allowed to eat quite literally anything. I was eating rice, I was eating eba, I was eating anything actually. So my mom and my husband arrived later that day. Relief. I didn't have to be by myself, although my sisters were around, two of my sisters, but there was only so much that they could do. We needed extra hands, extra help, or more help. I remember my mom saying that she didn't know that women who gave birth via C-sections bled, like the post-delivery bleeding. And I guess that's just one of the many things that people don't know about C-sections, or the many misconceptions about C-sections. It wasn't smooth. I felt sick most days, felt unwell most days. But all in all, I tried to take care of my incision by using methylated spirits morning and night, morning and evening, twice a day, to clean it with a cotton wool twice a day. And I just made sure to take all my meds correctly or properly. And the journey wasn't easy, but we're here now. But one thing that I am definitely grateful for is quick recovery. That is definitely an answered prayer. We're going to end this video here, guys. Thank you for watching. I do hope that you find it insightful, educated, and if you are looking for answers, I do hope that I was able to give you one or two. Please share this video with people you think it might be helpful to. Leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. If you have a question, I'd love to answer if I have the answer, of course, based off of my experience. Like this video, it will let me know that you love this kind of content, and I'll be sure to make more of them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching again, and I'll see you in my next video.